August 1392. The French crown begins to fracture. In the forest of Le Mans, King Charles VI breaks. A sudden, violent delirium overtakes the monarch. Believing his own men are assassins, he draws his weapon. He cuts down 4 of his own knights before restraint. The king is returned to Paris, totally catatonic. The kingdom is left without a functional executive head. His physical body recovers, his mind does not. Power abhors a vacuum. The regents move in. The king's uncles systematically seize the royal treasury. They dissolve his council. They install loyalists. The state is no longer a country, it is an asset. Winter 1392. Records describe violent agitation between stretches of total withdrawal. Charles fails to recognize his wife, Isabeau. He forgets his title. He forgets his name. Royal physicians document the anomalies without comprehension. They blame an acute imbalance of bodily humors. The reality is clinical. The mental vessel is fracturing. By January 1393, the king has suffered multiple relapses. To celebrate a high-ranking wedding at court, a grand masquerade is announced. The court demands a public display of stability and joy. 6 noblemen prepare a highly irregular performance. 6 costumes soaked in pitch and an open flame. The catalyst for total systemic collapse. January 28, 1393. The Hôtel Saint-Pol. 6 men, including King Charles VI, prepare an intermission performance. The concept, disguised as savages. Primitive, wild men of the woods. The execution requires specific chemical adhesion. Linen garments are saturated in highly flammable pitch and resin. The sticky fabric is coated in loose, unspun flax to simulate fur. The men are literally sewn into the costumes. The garments cannot be removed quickly. They are skin-tight. Recognizing the volatile nature of the materials, an explicit order is issued. All torches are banned from the Great Hall during the performance. The crowd must rely entirely on low-intensity peripheral light. The security protocol is absolute. Its enforcement is non-existent. Late evening. The hall is loud, chaotic, and close. The 6 wild men enter the space, chained together to form a line. The crowd is highly erratic. The king's identity is kept hidden. They perform a frantic, uncoordinated dance to confuse the audience. At midnight, Louis, Duke of Orleans, enters the hall. He is the king's brother. He arrives late, accompanied by his own retinue. Whether he was unaware of the mandate or indifferent to it has never been resolved. Orleans wants to identify the masked performers. He moves toward the chain of performers. He holds the open flame inches from one of the unspun flax masks. The loose fibers do not require contact to ignite. Radiant heat bridges the final inch. The loose flax ignites instantly upon exposure to the flame's proximity. The underlying pitch and resin matrix acts as an immediate chemical accelerator. 5 of the performers are chained together. Escape is mechanically restricted. The flash fire travels the length of the chain in seconds, enveloping all 5. Panic disrupts the core of the Great Hall. Spectators attempt to smother the fire using cloaks and wall hangings. The pitch liquefies under thermal stress, fusing the burning material directly to the skin. Charles VI is separated from the main chain, having moved toward the audience. The young Joan, Duchess of Berry, recognizes the king's silhouette. She immediately pulls him beneath her heavy, fire-resistant silk skirts. She smothers the initial ignition before the underlying pitch can liquefy. The king survives. For the 5 chained noblemen, the architecture becomes a trap. One performer, Ogier de Nantialet, breaks his chain and runs. He flings himself into a large wooden wine cooling vat in the scullery. The water halts the thermal reaction. Nantier is the sole survivor of the chain. The remaining 4 noblemen continue to burn on the stone floor. The skin-tight suits make it impossible to peel the material away without removing human tissue. Louis of Orleans drops his torch. The realization of his actions is immediate. Contemporary accounts describe the screaming as prolonged and severe. The air in the Hôtel Saint-Pol becomes highly toxic from burning resin. The fire eventually starves itself of fuel. The 4 injured men are still alive. They will not survive the night. The king is carried away, physically intact but unresponsive. The immediate event is concluded. The biological aftermath begins. The incident will enter the chronicles as the Bal des Ardents. January 29, 1393. The physical toll is tallied. 4 high-ranking French aristocrats are dead or actively dying. Among them, Yvain de Foix, the illegitimate son of the Count of Foix, and Amaury de Craon. Contemporary accounts confirm that the deaths are not immediate. The trauma is treated with standard 14th century surgical protocols. Wounds are washed with wine and vinegar, then coated in animal fats. The primary systemic threat is not the initial burn, but subsequent sepsis. The first 2 nobles die within days of the incident. The remaining victims survive for 2 additional days in extreme agony. The last to die is Hugues de Guise, a highly unpopular figure at court. Chronicles note that the Paris populace views his agonizing death as divine retribution. By February 1st, the performance group has been reduced by 4. The political consequence of these deaths is immediate instability. Louis of Orleans faces severe public backlash for introducing the flame. Rumors circulate that the incident was a targeted assassination attempt by Orleans. To prevent a popular uprising, Orleans undergoes public penance. He funds a chapelry at the Celestine Monastery to expiate the deaths. The physical corpses are buried. The political damage is contained. But the primary target of the trauma is still inside the palace. Charles VI has survived the fire without a single physical scar. His skin is unblemished. His neurological state is completely altered. The shock accelerates a deterioration that physicians cannot explain and cannot reverse. The king lapses into a silent, deeply defensive state of paranoia. What follows will be recorded as one of the strangest documented cases in medieval medical history. The clinical category is somatic delusion, a profound disruption in the perception of one's own physical body. By the summer of 1393, the king's defensive isolation solidifies into a specific delusion. Charles VI becomes convinced that his physical skeleton is no longer organic. He informs his inner council that he is made entirely of glass. The delusion demands immediate structural modifications to his daily wardrobe. He orders heavy iron rods to be sewn vertically into the seams of his doublets. The metal framework is designed to prevent his torso from shattering upon physical impact. Movement through the royal residences becomes a calculated mechanical exercise. He refuses to allow anyone to make direct physical contact with his person. Ordinary human contact is now categorized as a lethal kinetic threat. The king remains functional for brief intermittent intervals, but the state is fragile. The glass delusion will persist for decades, a permanent feature of his recurring madness. The political vacuum created by his instability cannot be filled by iron linings. The rivalry between the houses of Orleans and Burgundy accelerates into open civil war. France enters the 15th century structurally fractured, governed by an unapproachable sovereign. The tragedy at the Hôtel Saint-Pol was not the origin of his condition. It was the catalyst that crystallized it. We leave the court of France to trace the secondary infection across European borders. This concludes Part 1.